Hi guys, Luke here, and this video is dedicated to all of you that are just getting started with Django and want to learn signals. So we will explore some of the most basic and commonly used signals on a project that we are going to create in just a second. So at the end of the video, you will know how to apply post-save, pre-save, many-to-many changed, and pre-delete in your own applications. So yeah, let's get started. Alright guys, so before we dive into code, I just want to inform you about the upcoming video releases. And this week my goal is to publish the second part of the video series, How to Create a CNN with Django and React. And probably at the beginning of next week, I will publish the 11th part of the social network project in Django. So let's begin by asking ourselves what are actually signals. So I think that it's much more easier to understand them on examples, which we will do in this project quite a lot. But basically, signals in Django enable communication between applications by sending some information on events that occurred, and based on those events, defined actions will take place. So one application, the sender, can inform another one, which will be the receiver, that something has happened and that certain defined actions should be executed. So with that being said, let's head over to Visual Studio Code and let's take a look at what have I done so far. So basically I created 4 applications: the buyers, cars, orders, and sales. They are empty. I haven't done anything with them, but in the settings py file I added them to the installed apps list, and also I created a super user because we will have to log in to the admin very soon because all the work will be done from there. Let's now go to an info.md file which represents the plan for this video. So we will begin with the buyers application. Here the user is going to send an information to the buyer that a user instance has been created and a buyer instance will be created based on the user, and we will use a post-save signal for this. Then we will go to the cars application, and here we will have an update of the buyer. So the car will inform the buyer about something, and we will do a comparison between the post-save and the pre-save, as well as pre-save and overriding the save method. And then we will head over to the orders. Here we will use a many-to-many changed on the order itself. So whenever something changes in the many-to-many field, we will simply do an update. And then we will also do another signal between the order and the sale, and we will use a post save for this. And finally, in the sales, we will work on the sale and the order. So before the sale gets deleted, we will do something to our order instance, and we will use a pre-delete signal for this. So now let's head over to the official Django documentation, because there are 2 approaches of registering signals which I would like to mention. The first one is taking the manual connect route, and the second one is using the receiver decorator, and this approach will be presented in this tutorial. So let's go back and let's jump into the buyers application, into the models py file, and over here let's create a class buyer which inherits from models.model, and we will define 2 fields. The first one is going to be the user, and this is going to be a models 1-to-1 field, and this is going to be a 1-to-1 field to the user. We will import the user in just a second, and then we will have a Boolean field called from signal, and this is done for educational purposes. This field obviously doesn't make much sense. We will just put in models Boolean, and we will set the default to be equal to false. And once we will work on the cars application, we will refer to this from signal, so we will understand how a pre-save signal works. Okay, so right now let's import the user from Django contrib auth models import user, and let's put it here, and on delete is going to be equal models cascade. All right, let's also add a string representation, and let's return str self user. Okay, so we are done with the models.py file, and what we can do next is to head over to the admin. Over here, let's register this model. So from .models import buyer, and now admin site register, and let's put in the buyer. So now we registered a buyer in the admin, and we just need to go to the terminal, stop the server from running, and run the migration command. So python manage py make migrations, and python manage py migrate, and python manage py run server. Okay, so now if we refresh, we have our buyers in the admin. However, we can't just yet create the buyers instances automatically. So now whenever a user is created, a buyer won't be created automatically, and with the use of signals we will change this. So whenever a user gets created, a buyer instance of this user will be created as well. So in order to do that, we need to head over to the apps.py file, and this is an application configuration file. With it we can configure some of the attributes of the application, and we can go inside our class buyer config, which inherits from app config, and put in a ready method. And inside this ready method we can register signals. So we just need to import and then refer to the buyers application. So the first thing is that we need to put in buyers, and then after the dot we need to provide the file. So in this case we need to create a new one, and this is going to be called signals.py. And now we can go back to our apps, and inside the ready method we can import buyers signals. So obviously we will do some work in the signals in just a second, but now let's just set them up correctly. So we are done with the apps.py file. I'm just going to copy the buyers config because we will need to use this name in the init.py file. Over here we need to set a default app config, and this is just going to be the path to this buyers config. Okay, so it has to be as a string, and we need to put in buyers, and then we have apps, and then this buyers config. Okay, so this may look scary, but it actually isn't. So now what we can do is to focus on the signals themselves. In this application, we are going to send a signal between the user and the buyer, and we are going to use a post-save signal for this, which is probably the most popular one. It triggers just after a certain model finishes executing its save method. So if you've done some other tutorials on my channel, you know that very often we override the save method in the models.py file. But if this is confusing for you, we will talk about this a little more once we get to the cars application. All right, so enough talking, let's create our first signal, and we need to begin with the imports. So from Django db.models.signals, we want to import our post, not pre-save, but post save signal. Okay, so this is the one thing. As mentioned before, we are going to work with the signals with the use of the receiver decorator. So we need to import this decorator from Django dispatch. Okay, And then we want to grab our user, because this is going to be the sender. From Django contrib auth models, we want to import the user, and the receiver is going to be the buyer. So from .models, we want to import the buyer. Okay, and we need to begin with the receiver. The first argument is the type of the signal, so it's going to be the postsafe, and then we need to specify the sender, and the sender is going to be the user, because the user is going to tell the buyer, hey, I created an instance of the user, and please create a buyer instance to this user. Okay. So another example will be this one with the profile that I mentioned before. A user is created. Hey, create a profile to this user. So the user can later, I don't know, add a profile picture, add some bio, some additional information regarding where the user is from, what are his or her hobbies, and so on. Okay, so we have the receiver ready, and now we just need to create a function. I'm just going to call it post save create buyer, and this will take in the sender. The sender is the user, but this is not exactly what's very interesting for us. What will be more interesting is the instance and the created, and then we will also have keyword arguments. So those two parameters are very, very important, because over here we have the instance of the user, and the created is a Boolean value, which is simply equal to true or false. And we can ask if created. So if this user instance is created, then we can write down buyer objects create, and we want to set the user to be equal the instance. Okay, so if we go to our models py file, here we have a user, which is a one-to-one field to the user, and in the signals we are setting the user to be equal to the instance. So we are creating a buyer of this particular user. So to understand this a little bit better, let's do some prints. I'm going to put in sender. I'm going to put in instance, okay? Instance, and also I'm going to print the created. And I forgot about closing the parentheses on the right, so let me correct this mistake very quickly. And inside the Django administration, I'm going to write down test user, and I'm going to set up a password, and I'm going to press save. So let's see in the terminal what happened. Here we have our model, which is the sender. Then we have the instance is equal to test user, and the created is equal to true. Okay, so now if I press save again, we are doing some additional work on the user instance. We can put in first name, last name, email address, set the permissions, and so on. So I'm going to save it again, and this time I get created is equal to false. Okay, so after an update we have the false. The true is returned only once while creation of the instance. So if we go to the buyers, of course, here is our buyer instance. This is working perfectly. So we can actually add maybe another user. Let's call it test user 2. And I'm going to set up a password. Press save. And let's save this again over here and go to the buyers, and here is our test user 2. So as you can see, this is working very well. And yeah, we can finish off with the buyers application and go to the cars application. Again, we will begin with the models.py file. Let's define a new class called car. This inherits from models.model, and we will have 4 fields altogether. The first one will be the name. It will be just the name of the car. This is going to be max length, a char field with the max length of, let's say, 200. And then let's also put in a price, and this is going to be, let's make this a positive integer field. Okay. And then we will have the buyer, and this is going to be a models foreign key to the buyer, so we need to import the buyer, and I'm going to do it in just a second. And then we will have code is equal to models char field, and this is going to be the code of this particular car. Let's call it a vehicle identifier number, something like this, but a little bit simplified. And this will take in a max length of 10, and we will make this optional, so blank is equal to true. So now let's return to the buyer. Let's import the buyer from buyers.models. Let's put it over here, buyer, and on delete will be equal to models cascade. All right, let's also add a string representation. Return, and let's return the self name, and then self price, and the self buyer. Okay, so now let's save this models.py file. Let's go to the admin and let's register it. So from .models, we want to import our car, and admin site register car. Okay, so let's save this. Let's go to the terminal, Python manage py make migrations, Python manage py migrate, and Python manage py run server. Okay, let's go to home, and we have our cars over here. So right now what we need to do is to register signals. So the question is, can you try it on your own? Please pause the video and try to do it exactly as we did in the buyer's application. Okay, so I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to head over to our apps.py file. Over here, I'm going to put in a ready method, and I'm going to import cars signals. So we don't have the signals file just yet, but we are going to create it right now. Signals py. Okay, so in the apps.py, I'm just going to save it and grab this cars config and jump into the init.py file, where we are going to specify the default app config to be equal to, and then we have to go to cars, apps, and then this cars config. So now if we save it, we have the signals set up, and we just need to work on them in the signals.py file. So this cars application will handle at least 2 use cases. The first one is in the models.py file. If we go over there, we can find our code field, and this code needs to be generated for each instance coming through this car class. Okay, so we will be using a standard approach for this, which I use in basically all of my tutorials, and that is a save, overriding the save method. But then I want to show you an alternative approach, because this is a tutorial on signals, and we will be using a pre-save signal for the same purpose. So this is the first case. The second case is that if we head over to the buyers, we would like to change this from signal from being false to be true. Okay, so this is the second thing that we would like to change. And yeah, we will do some comparisons between, if we go to the info MD, between the post save and pre-save, and the pre-save and the overriding of the save method. So let's jump into the models.py file. Over here, I'm going to begin by overriding the save method to generate this code. Okay, so I'm going to write down save, the stakes in self, and then args and keyword args, and it will return super save and then args and keyword args. All right, we would also like to import UED to generate a random string that will be filled out over here in this code field. And yeah, the first thing that I'm going to do is to write a check if self code is equal to blank, and in this case I'm going to set the self code to be equal UED UED4, and I'm going to wrap it up with a string and then use the replace. We would like to replace this with nothing, and we would like to bring everything to upper and then limit it to 10 chars. Okay, so this should give us a unique code for the car. Let's save this and let's jump into the cars. Let's add a car. First car. Let's set the price to be 100. The buyer will be test user. Let's press save and continue, and here is our code. Okay, so now if I press save and continue again, the code won't change, because here we have if self code is equal to blank, and it's only blank when we are creating this car. Okay, so this is the traditional approach using the save method. Let's comment this out. Let's save the models.py file and let's jump into signals. So now we will handle this with the use of pre-save signals. So we need to import pre-save at first. From Django db models signals, we want to import pre-save, and then we need to import our receiver decorator. So from Django dispatch import receiver, and then from .models import car, and now we can write down receiver, put in pre-save, and the sender will be the car itself. So we aren't sending any information to external applications. We are doing everything within the single application that is the car. So you can say that the car is the sender and the car is the receiver. And over here we can put in a function called, for example, pre-save create code. Okay, and this will take in the sender, then we will have the instance, but we won't have access to the created. And let's put in keyword arguments. For now, I'm just going to write down pass, because yeah, unlike the post save signal, the pre-save signal triggers just before a certain model finish executing its save method. Okay, so over here we don't have access to the created, and let's return to our code. And I'm going to actually bring everything from here not everything, but the middle part from here, and put it inside of this function. I'm going to bring this back in, and the self will be changed to instance, okay, because this is basically self is basically the instance over here. And let's save this and yeah, test this out. So I'm going to delete this code from here. All right, I'm going to press save and continue editing, and we have UID is not defined, okay, because we need to import it over here as well. And let's save it, refresh, and I'm going to delete this one more time, save and continue, and here is our code. So this is working as well. And it's very difficult for me to tell you guys which approach is better. Both ways work perfectly fine, as you saw just a few seconds ago. I usually do it this way. If I don't have to set up signals, I'm not setting up signals. I'm using the save method inside of the models py file. If I have to set up signals, so if I have to send some information to a receiver, which is an external application, I'm using signals. The only exception is the many-to-many field, which we will cover very, very soon. However, we still need to do some work in this signals py file in the cars application. And we need to bring in the buyer, so from buyers.models import buyer, because as the second step we want to grab our buyer from over here, okay, and we want to change the field of this buyer from signal from false to be equal true. So yeah, we can do it by assigning to obj buyer objects get, and we want to get it by the field that we defined as user in the buyer. So over here we have the user, and this is a one-to-one field to the user. So going back to the signals, we can set the user is equal to instance, and then we want to put in the buyer, okay, because if we look in the models, we have a buyer which is a foreign key to the buyer. So again, in the buyer we have a user field which is a one-to-one field to the user. So we can simply write down user is equal to instance buyer dot user, okay. And then once we have this object, we can change from signal field to be equal true, and then we just need to write down obj.save. Okay, and then we can change the name, modify buyer, and create code. Okay, so now let's try this out. I'm going to refresh, delete this code, and the test user should now have from signal is equal to true. I'm going to press save and continue. We have a code, and if we go to the buyers, test user 2 should have it false, and test user should have it true. Okay, so this is how it's working. So now let's try to do the same thing with the post save so we can actually see the difference. So I'm going to copy everything from here, and I'm going to comment this out. I'm going to paste it over here, change pre-save to post save. We need to import post save. Post save, okay. And over here we can put in the created, and yeah, if instance is equal to blank, we can write down instance code, and we can change this buyer from signal to be equal from false to true. And what do you think? Will this work? So yeah, let's test this out. So I'm going to save the signals right now. Okay, I'm going to change this to post, save, modify buyer, and create code. So now I'm going to save this, and let's see if both of those things will work. So again, I'm going to head over to the cars, and over here I'm going to delete it, and this time I'm going to select the test user 2, and I'm going to press save and continue. So as you can see, this didn't work, and if we go to the buyers, test user 2 is from signal is equal to true. So right now both of our buyers have from signal is equal to true, but this part didn't work. And if we would like it to work, we would need to write down instance save. Okay, so now if we save this and we head over to the cars, here we have no code, and then press save and continue, we have our code again. So as you can see, both post-save and pre-save work, but I think post-save is more popular. And yeah, if you need to modify existing instance of a class, you might consider using the save method, overriding the save method. This is usually what I do if I don't need to set up the signals. Okay, so I think we are done with the signals for the cars. We can now proceed to the orders. So again, let's jump into models py, and here we will define a new class, order, which inherits from models.model. And over here we will have altogether 5 fields. The first one is going to be a name, which is going to be a models char field with the max length of equal to 200. And then I'm going to set up a cars, and this is going to be a models many-to-many field. So this is the most interesting field for us in this orders application in terms of using signals. And here we are just going to provide the car, so we need to bring it in from cars models import car. So let's put it inside. And then we need to have something called total. So we will calculate how many cars do we have. So this is going to be a models positive integer field. And I'm going to set blank is equal to true. And then we will also have a total price. And this is going to be a models positive integer field with also blank is equal to true. Blank equals to true. Okay, and finally we will have active, and this is going to be a models boolean field, which will be changed from the default value true to false once the sales object gets deleted, but this is something that we will cover later. So now we can add a string representation, and let's return str self name, and let's save it. Let's jump into the admin from .models import order, and then admin site register order. Let's save it. Let's go to the terminal, Python manage py make migrations, Python manage py migrate, and Python manage py run server. Okay, so now we need to register signals. So again, we need to go to the apps.py file. Over here, let's put in a ready method, which takes in a self, and we want to import orders signals. So again, we need to create a signals file, signals.py, and again, we will leave it empty. And then we are going to grab this orders config, save it, and jump into init.py, and let's write default app config is equal to orders apps and then this orders config. All right, so now everything should be working and we can jump into the signals.py file. So at the top, let's begin as usual from the signals, from Django DB models signals, and from here we want to import many to many changed, and then we want to import our decorator. So from Django dispatch import receiver, and we also want to grab our order. So from .models import order, and now I'm going to head over to the admin, take a look at our order. So I'm going to add one, and here is our car. We will add a new one or maybe two, three more in just a second. Here we need to provide the name of the order and the total price will be based on this many to many field. So we want to sum the total count of cars inside of this many to many field as well as the total price, because if we head over to the cars, here we have access to the price of a car and we want to sum everything and get the total result for each order. Okay, so this is what we need to do, and yeah, we will use a many to many field for this. So over here, let's begin with the decorator receiver, m to m changed, and then here is the trick part. The sender won't be the order itself, it will be order, and then we need to relate to the many to many field. So here we have cars, order cars, and then we need to put in through. Okay, so this is the trick part for the many to many change, and then we need to put in the name of the function, m to m changed, maybe something like this, and let's call it cars order, and this will take in a sender, instance, and also an action, and then keyword arguments. Okay, and then we can set up a variable called total and set it initially to 0, and then also another one, total price, and also set it initially to 0. So these two variables will be reflecting those two fields over here in just a second. And the next thing is that we can create a for loop. So for car in instance cars all, and we can now increase with each iteration this total variable. Okay, so we are increasing the total by 1 with each iteration, and then the total price will be extended by the car price. So we can write down total price, and then we can grab the car price, because here we are looping through the cars, and in the models py of the cars we have the price field. Okay, so this should give us all the total cars inside the many to many field and the total price of the cars. And once this is done, we can assign the instance total to be equal to total, as well as the instance total price to be equal to total price, and we can write down instance save. All right, so this should do the trick. Let's see if it actually works. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to create an order 1. I'm going to select the only car available, and those two fields are blank, so they should be actually added automatically. I'm going to press save and continue, and we have not null constraint fail, orders, order total. So what we need to do is to go to our models.py file, Over here we are going to set null is equal to true, and over here I'm going to put null is equal to true as well. So now I'm going to save it, and Python manage py make migrations, Python manage py migrate, and Python manage py run server. So let's try this out again. Order 1, save and continue, and as you can see, this has been calculated automatically. So we have a total over here and the total price over here. So let's see how this actually runs. So I'm going to print running. Okay, I'm going to save this, refresh the page, save and continue. Let's go to the terminal. Nothing is over here because nothing changed in the many-to-many field. This is why. And let's add a car. I'm going to name it car 2. The price will be 200. The buyer will be test user. Let's save. And now I'm going to press save and continue. And as you can see, those fields have changed. Now we have 2 cars and the total price 300. And if we go to the terminal, we have running, but it's running 2 times. So what we can do one more time is to print out, but this time let's print out the action. Okay, so let's see what is the action. I'm going to save it, and I'm going to get rid of one of the cars, save and continue. Now we have only 1 car again. We are running and we have pre-remove and post-remove. Okay, so if we add one, save and continue, we are going to have pre-add and post-add. So how can we avoid duplicates? We can simply go somewhere maybe over here. If action is equal to post-add, or action is equal to post-remove, in this case, we want to execute all the code over here. And then let's just grab this and put it inside, just above the for loop. Okay. So let's save this. I'm going to save this. And now we have 2 cars and the total of 300. And we have only 1 time running and 1 time post add. So now if I remove the car, I press save and continue, we have 1 car and the total price is 100. And here we have post remove. Okay, so yeah, this is how the many-to-many field works. I'm just going to correct the name because it's here there, it should be order. And let's maybe add a couple of cars, maybe 2 cars, just to have, just to be sure that this is working correctly. So I'm going to add maybe awesome car, and this is going to be a price of 500, and the buyer will be test user, and I'm going to press save. And also I'm going to add maybe a mini car, and the price will be 50. The test user 2 will be the buyer, save, and then I'm going to select all of the cars, press save and continue, and now we have 4 cars with the total of 850. All right, and here we have only running and post add. Okay, so this is it for the many-to-many changed. If we take a look at our info.md file, in the orders we covered the m2m changed, and we also said that we want to have a post save for the order signal to be sent to the sale, but we don't have the sale just yet. So actually let's jump into the sales and into the models py, and let's create this class. So this is going to be a class sale, inherits from models.model, and over here we are going to specify two fields, the order, and this is going to be a models, let's do this a foreign key, and it will be a foreign key to the order, so we actually need to import our order from orders.models import order, and let's do it on delete is equal to models cascade, and also let's set the amount, and the amount is going to be models positive integer field again, and again we are going to provide blank is equal to true as well as null is equal to true. And then let's provide also a string representation str self, let's return str self amount. Okay, I'm going to save it and register it in the admin. So from .models import sale and admin site register sale. Okay. So now we need to jump into the terminal, quit the server from running, Python manage py make migrations, Python manage py migrate, and Python manage py run server. Okay, so let's jump to home, to sales, and let's add a sale. So we have an order, we have one order, so we can select only the order one, and we have the amount. So right now what we can do is to go back to the signals in the orders, and we can create another one below the many-to-many changed. So let's write the receiver, and this is going to be the post save, so we need to import it, post save, and we also need to have our sale. So let's write down from sales.models import sale, because the receiver is going to be the sale. So here we just need to put in post save, and the sender is going to be the order, but the receiver is going to be the sale. Okay, so right now what we can do is to write a function post save, let's call it create or update sale, and this will take in a sender instance, a created, and keyword args. So here we can do it a little bit differently with the use of get or create method. It unpacks two variables. The first one is the object itself, the second one is the created, but we don't need the created right now. So I'm just going to use obj and this space below, and sale objects get or create, and we want to get it by the order, and since the sender is the order, we want to assign to the order the instance. Okay, so one more time. In the sales, in the models py file, here we have the order, which is a models foreign key to the order, and over here in the signals we are basically referring to the sales that the order should be the instance of the sender. Okay, so this is exactly what we have done over here, and then we just want to set the obj amount to be equal instance and then total price, and we just want to save the object. Okay, so let's see how this will work. I'm going to save the signals py file, and I'm going to go to the orders, and over here I'm going to save this, save and continue. So now if we jump into the sales, we have our sale, as you can see. So again, if we go to the orders and modify something over here, press save, go to the sales, and the price is, as you can see, different. It changed. All right, so I think we are done with the signals for the orders application, and now we need to do the pre-delete for the sales application. So again, let's jump into the apps PY. Let's write down ready method, which takes in self, and here we are going to import the sales signals. So we need to create the signals py file, and we will do some work in just a second over here. In the apps, let's grab the sales config. Let's save this apps py file and jump into init. Default app config is going to be equal sales apps and this sales config. All right, so now we can go to the signals and, as usual, begin from the imports. From Django db models signals import, and we want to import pre-delete. Okay, we need to have the dispatch decorator. So from sorry, not the dispatch decorator, but the receiver decorator imported from Django dispatch. And we also need to have our sales model. So from .models import sale, and also we need to refer to the orders. So from orders .models import order. All right. Let's write the decorator. Let's put in the type of the signal. So this is going to pre-delete, and the sender is going to be the sale. And let's write a function pre-delete change active order, and this will take in a sender, instance, and also keyword args. So over here we can assign to obj instance order, because the sale is the sender, so we have an instance of the sale, and in the models py we have an order here over here, order field over here, which is a foreign key to the order. So basically we are getting the order by writing instance.order. Okay, so now in the obj we have an order, and if we have this particular order, we can simply change the active to be equal to false. All right, and we just write down obj.save. So again, here we have the order. This is a foreign key to the order, and we are talking about the instance of a sale. So we are assigning to the obj variable this particular order stored over here. And if we have this particular order, we can access this active field and change it from default true to false. And this is exactly what we are doing over here. So once we take the sale and delete it, the order should be no longer active. And I'm going to save this, head over to the orders. Here is our order 1. It's active right now. And if I go to the sales and delete it, let's go to the orders. The order is no longer active. Okay guys, so I think we can finish off over here. This was a quite a long one. I hope this tutorial was helpful for you to understand the basics of signals. And yeah, see you in the next video. Take care, have a great day, and bye bye.